Okay, hey there folks, and welcome to another weekly lecture of Hempology 101.
Hey.
Couldn't help leaving. Cheers. It's always a pleasure to be here to talk about what I think is one of the most important subjects in the world right now. And today's topic is cannabis in the media, and I should start by apologizing for misleading everyone. I hadn't double-checked my email with Dave Bratzer, but I knew he was coming in November. However, I confused which week. It's in 2 weeks' time on the 16th, just really days before his election on the 19th. And I apologize for those who may have made a special trip. I hope that's not overly disappointing, but he will be here. And another event you may want to put in your calendar for Dave is next Tuesday evening, 7:30 to 9. It's in the Alex Golden Hall, kind of the music conservatory in downtown Victoria, just at Quadra and Johnson, or sorry, really Quadra and Pandora. And so we're going to be there, and others next Tuesday night, and then Dave will be here the following week. So again, my apologies for that. Today's lecture is on cannabis and the media, which in some ways is, again, a fundamentally important topic, and really, in a lot of ways, when this plant becomes free, a lot of that will have to do with what is happening in the media. And I'm going to start, though, before kind of talking about today and where the media is going, at the beginning, because in a lot of ways we wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the media involving themselves in prohibition in the first place. Because the first industry that really became involved directly in fighting the cannabis plant in 1916 was the paper pulp industry and the newspaper companies. And William Hearst recognized the threat for his timber holdings that he and many other newspaper companies had purchased, because like most industries, you would want to buy the supply chain if possible. And so the threat made William Hearst and others come up with the whole Reefer Madness campaign, and in fact invented the word marijuana and convinced the public there was this new dangerous drug. I brought the Black Candle here, which was published in 1923 in Canada as a book by Emily Murphy, who was actually the first female judge in the British magistrate, and in some ways a really respectable feminist in her time. On the other hand, she had some very dark ideas, very racist ideas, and that included thoughts about the use of cannabis and the colored people that would murder and rape upon using it. And so she wrote a series of articles in Maclean's magazine that got published as a book. It wasn't something that she sought out to do, but she became very well known for writing in Maclean's, and people at the time really sucked it up. And it was a bunch of lies. I don't have it bookmarked here. I should. There's a particular story out of article about the chief of police, I think in LA, being quoted as to how people were being murdered and raped because of this drug, and that just got printed over and over in the newspapers, and to the point where the media just became convinced, through no real experience, that there was a drug problem. And it's something that, again, we wouldn't be here for not only the articles in the newspaper and the odd really overblown story that would appear in the paper, much like today, where when people are often, unfortunately, a lot of people are being killed and other crazies are doing things And if they use cannabis at all, well, you can be assured that that's going to be one of the factors blamed in that murder. Well, that was happening through the 1920s and 30s, where people were being exploited almost in their stories in the media, and cannabis use being blamed. And Reefer Madness, I didn't bring down many of the movies, but if you haven't seen the movie Reefer Madness, it's comical now, but people actually believed it back then. And there wasn't just one movie, Reefer Madness. If you look up on the internet, there were dozens and dozens of movies that were being put out that were trying to portray cannabis users as crazy homicidal maniacs. And in fact, Reefer Madness, the movie we know as Reefer Madness, is really often a bunch of clips of these movies. And so that had a very profound effect upon people's thinking as well. And then what turned the tide, I believe, in part, was people on our side of the fence started to create our own media. We could see that the media wasn't portraying us in an image that was good in any sense. And in the 1960s, people started to obviously question authority and smoke cannabis more openly. And publications started to appear. I don't have all the really old, early ones that started to come out. I brought a selection of newspapers and magazines, but I don't even think I have a High Times, which is really ridiculous because in some ways it started with High Times. But certainly, I think it was 1971 that High Times magazine came out for the first time, really portraying cannabis users and the society itself, the cannabis culture, in a positive light. And that was really important for a number of reasons. For one, it started to allow businesses and consumers to connect. And that was really important for a lot of different individuals, whether they were publishing books like Gordon's Chairneck, or developing other small cannabis-related businesses, or getting lawyers out there as well. High Times has always been great for this directory at the back that lists all sorts of organizations and things. Very much so, it was a networking, publication when it came out. But it also, was certainly an activist based and themed, and so it really helped people organize. And when it first came out, Normal also came out at the same time, and the two groups worked really well together. And there was a real initial kind of thrust that started to happen in the early 1970s, and cannabis came very close to being decriminalized in the Carter era. And what happened is, that changed things. And again, this is the media just turned on us. Was an incident that's not very well known now. It's known as the Bourne incident. And what happened was, there was the 5th annual Normal Convention, 1976, having a big party in Washington, D.C. They had all these big name lawyers and this great big expensive hall, and they were very close in many states to decriminalizing it. It started to happen already. There was a great momentum across the United States. And all of a sudden, the drug advisor, Robert Bourne, the drug advisor for Jimmy Carter, shows up. They're all like, wow, we're really there. And he ends up in a private room upstairs. And for crying out loud, the guy ends up doing cocaine with a bunch of other people in this private room upstairs. That really wasn't that private. There was people coming and going the whole time. And while no pictures were being taken, there were reporters there. There was a lot of people that knew that the guy was upstairs doing this. And it didn't hit the media right away, but within a couple of weeks, starting to in social columns in Washington, D.C., it started to be stated and admitted that the drug advisor for Jimmy Carter was snorting coke at the Normal Convention. Well, that ruined everything. That became a national incident. Robert Bourne lost his job. The administration had a complete about-face. and said that cannabis use leads to hard drug use. And it really had a chilling effect on the entire movement, just that one party, that one scene. Because again, the media exploited it in a way that worked to the advantage of the military-industrial complex, if you would call it that. But because of the built-up successes, there was this kind of built-up energy against us, it seemed, and that really helped burst it forward, which led to the Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan era, when there was this huge backlash against drug use. But fortunately, the media hasn't always portrayed us in a negative sense. But unfortunately, we've gone from being portrayed, in particular in the movies, as homicidal maniacs to real deviants and just party animals like Cheech and Chong. Because after the sort of experimentation of the 60s, the media wasn't able to just make their outlandish claims, and they had to sort of change their tactics. And what better way to convince people not to use cannabis than to convince them that they would turn out like Cheech and Chong if they started to smoke pot. And so while many of us embraced Cheech and Chong, and really the humor in many ways is quite enjoyable, at the same time the media did a really good job, and still does to a point, through shows like Trailer Park Boys and even Weeds, because I can't even watch Weeds because it portrays people in the movement so poorly that I feel insulted. But the media loves doing that, loves making people involved in the industry like me to look like gangsters or degenerates of some type, and so it's been an ongoing campaign that you